Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 8 of the Flourish program. Our topic for today is reading between the lines. And for our agenda today, we're going to be talking about last week. We'll do a recap of last week's and then last week's topic, and then we'll talk about the target. And then we'll talk about our topic for today, which is reading between the lines. Then we'll go over the target for this upcoming week, and we'll go over the tracker. So last week we talked about stress, sleep, and relationships. For stress, we talked about how stress affects our body, those factors that contribute to stress. And then we talked about self-care as a way to manage stress. So you all gave some good ideas in the chat for ways that you manage stress. So that was really great to just hear from you all. And we also shared some ideas as well. Then we talked about sleep. We talked about the effects of poor sleep. And we talked about some tips for improving sleep. Then we finished the class off with the importance of relationships and how relationships can positively impact our health. We talked about ways to build your community. And then I mentioned some resources that can help with impacting your health in a positive way. And these are also found in your guidebook. So if you want to refer to those, they are in your guidebook. So last week's target was to focus either on stress, sleep, or relationships, and think about 2 barriers you may have and then 2 ways to improve. So for example, if you chose sleep, the goal was to look at 2 barriers that's keeping you from getting quality sleep, aiming for that 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, and then 2 ways to improve your sleep. And so that was last week's recap and target. So now we're going to jump into our topic for today, which is reading food labels. We're going to first start off with talking about the purpose of food labels and how it is a requirement. So the purpose of food labels are to make quick, informed decisions to help choose healthy foods and beverages. Food labels provide facts for nutrients that impact common health concerns such as weight control, diabetes, and hypertension. Food labels are required by the FDA and the USDA. It's required on all packaged foods and beverages. Food labels are not required on raw produce, like fruits and veggies, of course, and fresh fish. So now we're going to start looking at the food label. We're going to start at the top and make our way down to the bottom of the food label. So let's start at the top. So if we look at the food label, the first line tells us the servings per container and the serving size. So let's start with the servings per container. So servings per container include the total number of servings in the entire food or package or container. And it's common for one package of food to contain more than one serving. Then the second line is serving size. The serving size is based on the amount of food people typically eat at one time. This is not a recommendation of how much you should eat, but just showing how much people typically eat of that particular food at one time. And the nutrition information that you see on the food label, it's based on the serving size listed on the label. If there is a second column based on the amount per package, that column of nutrition information will be based on the entire package of food. Serving size is shown as a common household measure that is appropriate to the food. So you'll see measures like cup, tablespoon, piece, slice, or jar, and it's usually followed by the metric amount. Now, something that you do want to pay attention to, you want to compare the calories and nutrients in different foods. Well, when you're comparing the calories and nutrients in different foods, you always want to check the serving size to make an accurate comparison. So if we look at our serving size first, that is what our nutrient information on there. So for example, if we look at this label, it's 2/3 cup, so it's 230 calories. So let's say you actually end up having double that, then you have to double all your nutrients. So it's very important that you look at the serving size first when you are reading that food label because that influences how much nutrients. So, like I said, if you're eating double that amount, then you want to double everything else on that label. So our next line is calories per serving. So calories refer to the total number of calories or energy supplied from all sources in a serving of the food. If you want to achieve or maintain a healthy weight, you want to balance the number of calories you eat and drink with the number of calories your body uses. And most of the time on a food label, they use 2,000 calories a day. It's just a general guide for nutrition advice, but your calorie needs may be higher or lower, and that's dependent on your age, your sex, your height, your weight, as well as your level of physical activity. Next, we have our percent daily value. And the percent daily value is a nice snapshot. It shows you how much a nutrient in a serving of the food contributes to the total daily diet. You can use the percent daily value to determine if a serving of the food is high or low in an individual nutrient and to compare food products. But you do want to make sure when you're comparing those food products that the serving size is the same. And as a general guide, 5% daily value or less of a nutrient per serving is considered low, and 20% daily value or more of a nutrient per serving is considered high. So if we look at this food label that you see on the screen, if we look at the added sugars, it's 10 grams of added sugar and it's 20% daily value. So that would be considered high. If we look at the saturated fat for 1 gram, the percent daily value is 5, so that would be considered low. So it's very important to, look at that percent daily value and see if that nutrient is high or low. Now, here's a note. You want to take a look at your food label, of course, and look at the percent daily value, but there also are nutrients that don't have the percent daily value, such as protein and trans fat. So you want to use the number of grams as a guide. All right, so on your food label, it lists different nutrients contained in the food product. You can use this section of the label to help choose products that are lower in nutrients you want to get less of and higher in nutrients you want to get more of. So the nutrients you want to get less of include saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, and added sugars. Most Americans exceed the recommended limits for these nutrients, and diets are usually higher in these nutrients and can increase the risk of developing health conditions such as cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, diabetes. So you want to really make sure that you are looking at the percent daily value. And remember, 20% or more is considered high, 5% or less is considered low. So as we look at saturated fats, sodium, and added sugars, you want to start looking on that lower end versus the higher end of that percent daily value. And the nutrients that you want to get more of include dietary fiber, vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. In addition to the nutrition facts label, the ingredient list is also a helpful tool. The ingredient list shows each ingredient of food by its common or usual name. And ingredients are listed in descending order by weight, so the ingredient with the greatest contribution to the product is listed first, and the ingredient contribute to the least by weight is listed last. So make sure you're checking the ingredient list on foods before you buy them. Make sure you use the list to find out whether a food or beverage contains ingredients that are sources of nutrients you want to get more of, such as whole grains, and sources of nutrients that you want to get less of, such as added sugar and trans fat. All right, so the weekly target for this week is to make informed food choices by reading food labels. So I want you to think about those nutrients that you are already paying attention to, and now that we've went over um, now that I've went over them, looking at those nutrients you want to really pay attention to. And we will talk about them in class next week. We'll do a recap, and I'll give everyone a chance to, ask questions if you have questions. But next week's topic, we're going to be talking about planning meals, movement, and mind. So if you watch this video and you do have questions that come up about the food label, please don't hesitate to email me and reach out to me if you have any specific questions about the food label. But that is all for our topic for today. And if you haven't already, make sure that you turn in your Flourish tracker. Thank you, everyone.